Have a record of this meeting. Okay. All right. So Shelley Entrikin.
Here.
Barb Long. Doug Manick. Audra Miles.
Here.
Joe Coffin. Craig Boynton. Hannah Fuchs. David Luders.
Here.
Mary Patton.
Here.
Shamra Robinson.
Here.
There we go. Tracy Dowell.
Here.
J. Thomas House. No. Joe Roberts. Brandon Hovey. Tyler Rogers.
Here.
Sean Griffin.
Here.
All right. Dawn Harper. Dawn?
Here.
There we go. I thought you were there. Jody Scott. Angel Marinich. Renee Razzo.
Here.
Chris Mitchell. Don Rulis. And Greg Cassidy. All right, let me see if we've got a quorum. All right, we are good. We do have a quorum. So now that I've called all the people on the committee, I'll go through everyone else, just announce. So I'm just going to start with the people whose names I can see, and then we'll go to the callers. So we have Francesca Lewis. They are our new Tri-County intern, so they're joining us. In the room, I should say we have Gabe Guevara and Ray Lees as well from our staff. I see we have Marie from Ivy Sill. And who else? We have Megan Rake. I know you're a newcomer, so welcome. And we also we've got Zoe Keller, who's going to speak in just a second. And I may have missed some callers, so if you're on the phone, oh, I know there's Audrey Barrett is here as well. Did I miss anyone else? Oh, there's someone coming in. I see. Okay, there's Jim Bremner from Washington Township.
Yes.
All right, we're going through the list of people right now, and that sounds like the end. So with that,
Can I ask if everybody can hear you?
can everyone hear me all right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to move on to number 2 on the agenda, which is public comment. Does anyone have any public comment before we move on? All right, then going to the minutes. So can I get a motion to approve the February 1st, 2022 minutes?
I'll make a motion.
We've got a motion from Shelley. Can I get a second?
I'll second it, Sean.
Second, Dave Luders.
All right, I got 2. I'll call on Sean because I heard him first. Thank you. Does anyone have comments about the minutes? All right, going once. Okay, so all in favor of approving the February 1st minutes, say aye.
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 All right, that'll do it. Okay, so now we can move on to agenda item number 4. We're really happy to have Zoe Keller here. I know her time is a little bit limited, but she can speak about the CVP program. She's from IDOT. She's basically the expert on this subject, so I will open the floor to you, Zoe.
Thanks, Rima, for inviting me to give just a quick little update. As you all are probably aware, we do have a CVP application open right now. We're holding a training session tomorrow from 2 to 3 p.m. If you haven't registered for that already, you can do so on the main dashboard page of Black Cat, which is our grants management system. And hopefully you're all aware of that at this point and have set your accounts up. If you are planning to apply and don't have a Black Cat account set up yet, definitely make sure that you reach out to me, I would say today, to get that set up, since the applications are due May 2nd. That being said, even if you attended the last session that we had a few weeks ago, this one will be a little bit different, just because I can never give the same presentation twice to start with, but also because it'll be shaped by some of the questions that we've received. And so it might not hurt to attend, even if you were with us for the first one, even if you just have it on as background noise. If you miss it, no problem. We also have the first training available on the Black Cat site, and the second one will be available, if not tomorrow afternoon, then Thursday morning at the latest. And you can access those on the Black Cat page using the resources tab at the top. And then you'll go to the global resources folder, and training resources is the folder name. Scroll all the way to the bottom, and our training is the last file uploaded. So that's just kind of some general information on that, in that training. And then honestly, most of the questions—
Your call is very important to us, so please remain on the line for our next event.
Sorry about that. Try it again.
No, that's okay. I'm just glad it wasn't my phone. I worried for a second. Let's see. So a lot of the questions that we've been receiving actually are addressed in the application instructions document, which you can find on kind of your application main page that lists all of the forms you need. It's the very first link, and it's a little bit confusing because initially when I posted the application, I wasn't quite done with the instructions yet. So I had listed download not available yet in the title. And when I changed that on my end, it didn't show up that way for the users of the application. So even though it says the download's not available, if you look to the left of that, there is a download button. And I have included some pretty specific instructions that hopefully answer a lot of the questions that you may have. But I realized that, you know, it can't cover everything. Nobody would want to read it. So if you do have any other questions that aren't addressed there or within the application PDF itself, please do reach out to myself or to Jeff. And you can also reach out to Rima. She is a wealth of knowledge, and even if she doesn't know exactly what the answer is, she can loop me in as well. So just don't forget that your HSCP coordinator is a really great resource for really everything, and a liaison to us at IDOT. Let's see. One of the things that I do want to call out specifically is the public hearing, which is a requirement for our public providers and for our nonprofit providers who are applying for this funding opportunity. Per the Open Meetings Act, you want to allow 14 days notice prior to your meeting. So it should be published 2 weeks before the meeting, and the meeting just needs to happen before the application deadline, which is May 2nd, like I mentioned. What you need to have from the meeting is proof of the notice being published, and then an agenda and minutes from the meeting. And from my experience, when I was the grantee applying for this, we never had anybody show up at the public hearings. So the minutes were just very basic. You know, we opened the meeting at this time. After, 30 minutes or so, no members of the public were in attendance, we adjourn the meeting. So even if it's something like that, that's totally fine. But if there are members of the public present, then your minutes they don't have to be super formal, but they do need to list out the verbal or written comments that were shared by the public. And that would make up your public hearing packet that will be uploaded to your application as public meeting materials. So I just wanted to call that out because we are coming up on quicker than any of us want to admit on that 2-week mark. So if you haven't published your notice, just be aware of that timing. That's really all that I have. I can take a couple of questions if there's time for it. I do have to jump off at 12:30 for another meeting, but I'll stick around until then and hear what's going on in 5. So thanks again, Rima. I appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Zoe. I know that we definitely have at least one question. Joe, do you want to ask yours?
I have one question regarding grants and 3 questions regarding pre and post trip inspections. The grant question, my boss is convinced that we can only apply to replace vehicles that are wheelchair accessible. And I was under the impression that we could apply to replace any of our vehicles regardless of that, because we have a lot of clients that are mobile and don't require wheelchairs. So could you clarify that maybe?
Yeah, that's a great question and one that we don't get as often. So I'm glad that you brought it up. We are able to replace vehicles that are not ADA accessible. And we're happy to help increase the accessibility of your fleet, even if you do have ambulatory clients. So yes, we can do that. And that also calls another point that I like to make. We also will replace vehicles that are agency purchased. So if you have an accessible minivan, for instance, that your agency purchased outright, we will still replace that for you with an accessible vehicle.
Great. Do you have time for some pre-trip questions?
I have time, and I'm happy to answer them to the best of my knowledge. Rima, is there time for that? Or I can also I can answer them via email and send them to Rima for her to disperse.
We've got time. Even if this lasts until 12:30, it's no problem.
Okay, my first question has to do with the under the hood portion of our pre-trip inspections. We have a lot more staff driving our vans now than we used to have, and many of them aren't very comfortable with checking the oil and the coolant, and I'm wondering if we could eliminate that portion of our pre-trip inspection. I check the fluids once a week anyway, so it seems a little redundant.
That's a good question. I will have to, I don't want to hold you all up while I look at our sample pre-trip inspection. I want to say that that's over and above what we recommend as a baseline, but don't write that in stone yet. I will get an answer for you, and I'll probably just send our sample to Rima, and she can send it to the region. But I think as long as you're checking fluids once a week, that should be more than enough.
Okay.
That's my tentative answer.
I have another quick question. We have multiple drivers driving the same vehicle throughout the day. And I'm wondering if each driver has to do a pre and post trip inspection, or if we can just have the first person in the morning do the pre and the last person at the end of the day do the post for each van.
So our recommendation and the general best practice is to have each driver do a pre and post. And the reason for that is because, you know, driver A could come in the morning and everything's perfect on the vehicle, and they back into, you know, this is an extreme example, but they back into a light pole and there's no post-trip inspection to say, oh yeah, now there's damage here. And then driver B doesn't have a pre-trip inspection to say, oh, this happened before I took control of the vehicle.
Yeah.
And of course, that's not hopefully a common occurrence, but even just smaller things. So that would be our recommendation, would be to have each driver complete a pre and post.
Okay. And what about the possibility of, instead of doing the whole inspection, the subsequent drivers could just do a walk around and look for damage, and then initial that before they leave that the van has no damage? Maybe. I don't.
Yeah, I think that like what I'm envisioning is you have driver A's post-trip inspection, and then you would have maybe a spot where driver B would like initial and put a timestamp, just saying, yes, their post-trip matches my pre-trip.
Right. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes, and I have one other quick question. Vans that are in disposition status, would they be considered, would they still be considered an IDOT van and thus require the pre and post trip like the ones that are not in disposition status?
Okay, so if by disposition status, are you referring to a vehicle that we've already released the lien and have given the title back to you, or it's somewhere in the process and you haven't received the title back?
I'm not sure if we have the title back or not, but we have some vans that we apply for disposition status and then continue to use them for a while. So
that's pretty common. I would say, well, I would encourage you to keep doing the pre and post trip even after we've released the lien, just for, you know, as a coverall kind of, in case there's an accident or something like that. You know, we don't want to think about that happening, but if something were to happen, it's good to rule out that there was an equipment issue. But the technical answer is that if you've received the title that IDOT has signed off on, you don't need to do the pre and post trip. You're not going to get in trouble from us.
Okay.
But if you've submitted all of your paperwork, but you haven't received the title back from us,
right.
It's still considered IDOT's property. And so you would still need to do that until you receive the title.
Okay, great. You were very helpful. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
All right, we'll open it up to anybody else. Do we have further questions about the grant or anything similar like that? All right. Going once. We've got some time to eat up if we want. Okay. I think I'll call it. Sounds like we've got no more questions. If anyone thinks of any, feel free to email me and I can connect with Zoe or respond to the best of my ability too. Thanks, Zoe, for all your input and just being here. We appreciate you.
Of course, thank you.
All right, excellent. So we will move on to the next agenda item. So the next one I've got here, it's the initial survey feedback. I want to thank everyone who helped distribute the surveys. It was very useful to us. I know it takes some logistics and time to do that, so we really do appreciate that. And we've done some some initial just work to understand what has come out of these surveys. So I'm going to hand it over to Gabe, and we're going to share our screen and show you what we've got. And again, we'll excuse me, we've got a PowerPoint, but it will work just as well if you're on audio only. So I will. Thinking about it. Let me change this. All right, there we go.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the survey results that of the agency's survey, that the surveys that the agencies took. So the first question that was asked were like, what were the counties that were served? And based off of the agencies, the counties that are served are Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, Fulton, Knoxville, McLean, Starr, Marshall, Bureau, Henderson, Henry, LaSalle, Mercer. So, wide range. The agencies that participated were Advocates for Access, EPIC, KCCDD, Inc., Association for the Development Disabled of Woodford County, Western Illinois Area Agency on Aging, TCRC, We Care, Central Illinois Agency of Aging, Snyder Village, and the Central Illinois Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. Here are like some of the services that these agencies provided: senior services, disability, employment, religious, legal, independent living, skills training, just to name a few. So some of the ways that these agencies provide transportation to their clients: they operate transportation vehicles directly. They contact transportation providers for their clients, or staff or volunteers provide client transportation, and then they subsidize fares or purchase passes for their clients. But most of the agencies operate transportation vehicles directly. Organizations that operate vehicles, we had like 77% of agencies that answered the survey said that they do, and those organizations were EPIC, the Central Illinois Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired, Snyder Village, KCCDD Incorporated, Association for the Developmentally Disabled of Woodford County, TCRC, We Care, and the Central Illinois Agency on Aging. And the fleet size for these agencies ranged from 2 vehicles to 60 vehicles.
Starts at noon, over at 1.
So we asked the question, are there any unmet transportation needs when it came in your community? And 100% of the agencies said yes. The demographic of the demographics to that unmet transportation needs were for senior citizens at 36%, persons with disabilities with 42%, and low income persons at 21%. What types of trips do your clients need? So some of those transportation needs were shopping, medical appointments inside the county, medical appointments outside the county, family friend visits, religious homages or service, entertainment, and social service appointments. We asked when it came to medical transportation needs, 77% of the agencies said yes for their clients. The locations of those medical transportation trips originated in rural Tazewell, Woodford County, Fulton County, and then the destinations were to Champaign, Bloomington, Chicago, Peoria, Tazewell, urban areas, and Iowa City. We asked how often do these trips need to be taken. 30% said weekly, 20% said daily, 20% said ad hoc, and then 30% said monthly. And then we asked, when do these trips tend to happen? And they said weekdays from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Another question that we asked were, what towns in your community need to improve their public transportation? And the top answers were Washington, Pekin, Galesburg, Canton, Chillicothe, Knoxville, Germantown Hills, Eureka, Roanoke, Creve Coeur, Metamora, and Minooka. We asked, what do you suggest needs to improve the transportation system? And then we broke it down to what type of public transportation would your consumer need or want? And the top answer was door-to-door demand response, where you would call ahead and pick up for elderly or people with disabilities. Another suggested themes to improve the public transportation were basically expand the geographical service area, expand service hours, make transportation more accessible via expanding the hours or having a reliable transit route. And then more demand options in urban areas. And then it was just more of the same. How can your current transportation be improved, expand transportation hours and services? Oh, and move away from the voucher system to a card type system. That was an interesting suggestion. That's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you, Gabe. So this is just, like he said, just for the agencies. And actually, I need to check if we received more surveys from any more agencies. There's a chance we got a couple more as he was working on this presentation. So at the next meeting, we will have a comprehensive version of this. But for all of the types of surveys we had. So there were 4 surveys that may or may not apply to you. And the first one we got was agencies, and we received some responses there via online as well as paper. Some providers, that was a second survey, providers. The riders, we had the highest response rate, which we really appreciate from our transportation providers. They asked their riders. We got 144 as of my most recent count. I need to compile. There might even be more than that I need to make sure I found from all the locations. So these are both online and on paper. we're working through those. And then we had a general community survey. We just got 8 responses with that. I think most of the marketing for this applied to riders, so that's why we got a lot more there. So these will all be part of the the Hstp plan that we're working through, coming up, through this summer and the rest of this year. So this is one of the tasks, is the surveys. All right, so that is the survey feedback on our agenda. So we're going to move on to the provider and agency updates. And so here I will go through my list just for the ease of listing people off here. And then you can give a short update if you have one. So let's just start from the top of my list, and because she's here in person. Shelley, do you have any updates?
I don't have anything.
All right. And next one, I've got Audra Miles. You have anything to share?
No, not today.
All right. How about Joe? You're next on my list.
My issues continue to be staffing and mechanical issues with the vans.
Okay. All right. Next one, I've got David Looters. Got anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Mary Patton, how about you?
Right now, AARP is concentrating on prescription drug affordability on the federal level, and on the state level, we're concentrating on nursing home legislation. So I haven't done much on transportation lately.
All right. I would argue that those are all connected. So we appreciate your work. Okay, so how about Shamra Robinson?
Afternoon. We're working toward the 5310 funding for Washington Paratransit Initiative. I recently met with the Tri-County Planner REMA, Jim Bremer, the City Supervisor, Mayor Manier with the City of Washington, and General Manager with CityLink, Doug Ross, to discuss future plans and a possibility of an extension. Provided a public hearing for the 5311 Rural Downstate Operating Assistance Funding Paratransit March 4th. We hope that we will receive the funding in the next few months. We started the COA, which is the Comprehensive Operational Analysis. We have implemented our new bus routes, which has increased many of our shorter routes for fixed routes. Many people are happy about the changes and have caught on. This is the biggest change made to our routes in the past 20 years. We also about 94 hard copy surveys.
You're cutting out a little bit, Shamra.
Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
I think there might just be some background noise. We heard you distributed 94 hard copies of the surveys.
Oh, okay. From riders, from various demographics that shared their feelings about this person that completed a notebook, flashlight of a CityLink bus, a CityLink pen, and a new purse-size COA route map. In total, we've received about 133 surveys if we include the surveys done on social media. Also working on hiring more operators for fixed route. We will be starting a training class on April 18th for the individuals we would like to hire based on if they pass the training. And we received 59 new paratransit applications in the month of March, and that completes my report.
All right, sounds like a busy time. Okay, moving on to Tracy Dowell.
So we have completed and submitted our applications for 5311 and DOPE, and starting to work on the CVP application. so we can get a couple of our vehicles replaced. And then the final thing that we're working on reluctantly is getting scheduling software. We are one small agency and we don't have a lot of transports like some of the bigger places, and so I wasn't able to attend the conference in person for RTAC, but did virtually, and heard IDOT mention that pretty much every transit agency is going to have scheduling software. So then spoke with my IDOT program manager, yes. So we're kind of right now just in the stage of where to go. And, you know, so if anybody has any feedback on the scheduling services that they have, our agency, I would gladly accept it. Because we are old school and we do it all on paper. So this is going to be a huge change for us. And honestly, I'm not very familiar with any of it because we just never wanted it. So, you know, anybody that is either currently using something or maybe in the same boat as us and out there looking, please let me know what your thoughts are and things that you've encountered. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Does anybody have any initial thoughts about their scheduling software? Is there one you really like or really don't like? All right, well, if you can think of anything, Tracy's the one looking for information there. All right, so going down my list, I've got Tyler Rogers. Any updates from you?
No updates.
All right. Okay, next I've got Sean Griffin with We Care.
Yes, we are actually currently looking for transportation software ourselves. We are just waiting for the funding to come through before we get it and go through training. As I said, as one thing, it seems like all the transportation services are using the software called TripMaster, so that's the one that we decided to go with.
Okay, yeah, hopefully that works well for you then. Okay, I've got Don Harper is next.
The only thing I have is IDOT did a surprise inspection on me a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, everything's been just going day to day, except for dealing with the mechanical issues of the vehicles.
Well, it sounds like that's a common thing, unfortunately. Hopefully that can be solved down the pipeline. Jody Scott, I think I saw you join. Do you have any updates from Advocates for Access?
No, I don't have any updates. Thank you.
All right. How about Renee Razzo from Central Illinois Agency on Aging?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. And that ends all of my regular committee members, but I know there's some other people here. How about Audrey Barrett from Snyder Village?
I have no updates or anything.
Okay. Let's see. How about Marie Argubright from Ivy Still? You still on? See your name there. Maybe you are unable to use audio. Yeah, we can't quite hear you. Okay, well if you do have something and you're able, you can type it in the chat. I can read it out as well. Okay, how about Megan Brake? I know she's a newcomer here. If you want to just introduce yourself, talk about your organization a little bit.
Sure. I work for Tazewell Mason County Special Ed Association, and I was invited to join as just kind of an opportunity to learn more about transportation throughout Tazewell County. So I'm excited to hear some of the things that is going on as we. I work primarily with students in high school who have disabilities, and I help them transition to adult services, and transportation is one of the areas that we often struggle with, especially the rural areas in Tazewell County. So I'm glad to be a part of this group.
Excellent. I'm glad you came. Yeah, as you can see, sometimes the topics vary depending on, what grants are out or what's going on in the community.
Yes.
All right. How about Jim Bramner? I know we've been collaborating a lot on 5310. Do you want to share any updates?
Yeah, I think that Shamra covered a lot of it already with our intent to progress with our trial period run. We were able to agree, basically, I guess Shamra and Doug had gone ahead and extended the trial period to 6 months at no additional cost, which is wonderful. Should give us a better idea on ridership. We're still waiting for FTA approval for the 5310 grant, which should be coming soon, I hope. Other than that, we're in the middle of agreeing to an intergovernmental agreement and designing a shorter rider application so that we can encourage quicker response to the rider for the short-term, to the short-term 6-month term of our transportation. That's it.
All right, sounds great. I think that's those are all the people I wrote down who are here. Oh, I did see in the chat, Marie from Ivy still has no updates. Thanks for that. Is there anyone else I missed? All right, so that actually leads really well into the next agenda item, which is the HSTP coordinator report. That's me. So like Shamra and Jim said, so anybody who's not fully involved with this, it's essentially we use some of our 5310 funds from the Federal Transit Administration to I have just recently applied officially for these funds to expand paratransit options into Washington Township and the City of Washington, and we worked out a good kind of a compromise. It was originally a 4-month term, and we were able to stretch it to 6 months without actually increasing the funds. So that worked out really, really well. So I did get a comment from the FTA already with some minor changes to the application, just words to change to ensure that it is read properly. And so we really hope that we get that approved ASAP so we can start providing more service. And similar to that, I've also submitted an application. So we had about $113,000 for the urbanized area from the FTA. It's the 5310 urban funds that we received. And so 100,000 of that was going to this Washington program. We had about 13,000 left. There's a little bit of background noise. Okay, so we had about 13,000 left. There was another project with the city of Peoria that was using older funds. We were able to kind of re-obligate that. And so we're using those extra 13,000 for that project that had already been written in the books, just to help with the engineering for that one. That's to improve an intersection in Peoria next to Glen Oak Park. So also waiting on that. Another thing I'll introduce briefly, and I will share my screen, but again, I'll talk about it as well. 1 moment. Okay, scroll back up here. Okay, all right, so I'm showing the cover of the 2016 Hstp Plan. This is our current, we are in the process of working to update this with the surveys. One of the updates we want to make is with the goals and objectives. So I'm going to show, I won't go through all these here, it's just to give an idea. I've jumped to the goals section, and I want to kind of give you some homework if you guys wouldn't mind. When you get the time, take maybe 15 minutes. Either look through these goals to see if they're still applicable, and make comments. If we have already completed some of these objectives, then let me know. It might be old information. And if some of them look like we want to keep them, we can do that. Or if you just don't have time to go through a document and you have an idea of what you want in this plan, then that's that you can.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Oh, no, that's okay. You're busy. And I've been trying to get a hold of people for this.
Okay. So this is just to get you guys thinking about, where we can go with the goals and objectives in the region. I know, excuse me, it's sometimes hard to think broadly, but we can use a lot of the same concepts that have been talked about in these meetings, timing of certain grants or different gaps in the system. So I will send this document out via email after this meeting. So I just want to give a heads up about that. I would appreciate some help with that just to make sure that everyone is represented.
Rima, is that
in the
a Word?
process.
Is that a Word document that they can edit, or how are you going to have them provide input?
It's a PDF, so if you can, you might be able to. It depends on the package that you have with Adobe, but you can either add comments on it on your computer, or you can just respond to my email if you do have comments as well.
Okay.
Yep. All right, and that is actually the end of my coordinator report. I don't have too much more than that. Does anyone have any sort of questions or comments or on anything we've talked about so far?
If none of them do, I have something.
All right, take it away, Ray.
Okay, sorry, I apologize to Rima for not bringing this up before, but there's a project that we've been working on for a couple of years, and it certainly impacts the issue of access equity, let me put it that way, for people that using motorized wheelchairs, or I don't know what they call them, but and then in wheelchairs themselves. But anyway, handicap access, and the project is the Bob Michael Bridge, and it doesn't affect. It may not affect a lot of people, but I know it affects a number of them because I've witnessed these folks trying to navigate the sidewalk and the bridge deck.
They're going to hear me if I turn it on. I'm just having such a terrible time this year with so many people ill and moving, and just
turn her off. Okay, and so we've gone through an advocacy process, and I didn't include anyone from the HSTP group, and I probably should have. I don't know whether that's Jody Scott from Advocates for Access, but but I need to, even though the project got going and we've gotten both public and private support, and we've actually, and the proposal was to get a barrier protected pathway on the Bob Michael Bridge. And that wasn't an easy thing to do, but we did have broad regional support, as I say, from public and private entities on both sides of the river. And I took the project to Ryan Spain, and then he enlisted the help of John Gordon Booth, and they were able to get within the Rebuild Illinois bill that passed several months ago. They were able to get and secure $20 million to not only provide and redesign the bridge to have a 14-foot barrier protected pathway on the upriver side, but they're also going to be doing some work on the deck itself because of the age of the bridge. So all of this happened, kind of the planets aligned and in a very favorable way, and the engineers have gone through and they've taken a little bit more time in kind of the conceptual phase because they didn't know whether these changes could be made, whether the bridge would be structurally sound that they could make it, and then also with the estimate that I received was from some pro bono work with a local engineering firm. They were the ones that gave me the $20 million number, and that basically is $2 million for planning, design, and engineering, and $18 million for construction. So the plan right now is they've gone through the concept phase. They've provided, they've solicited some input from a community advisory group of which I was a member, and they are proceeding with the concept of, as I mentioned before, of this barrier protected pathway on the north side of the upriver side of the bridge. And the barrier is a concrete barrier. It's not just a bunch of plastic tubes on the pavement. It's actually a concrete barrier. They've reduced the size of in order to get that on the bridge deck, they reduced the size of the travel lanes, as well as the what do you call them? The
medians.
Well, no, on the side, that's the painted,
The right of way, maybe?
Well, whatever's on the side of the deck. Yeah, any of you that've been over the deck, you know that there's a painted line there, and it's about 5 feet wide. And people, as you've probably observed, people will ride and walk on the sidewalk, which is 5 feet wide, and then on the bridge deck where that painted line, which is not a place to walk, but people do that. And when there's people crossing, and I have witnessed 2 motorized wheelchairs trying to pass on the sidewalk, which is 5 feet wide, and those are about a little over 2 feet wide, and then you have hangover, obviously, and that whole circumstance was an accident waiting to happen. Because if you could imagine one of those wheelchairs going off the sidewalk, dropping down 5 inches and rolling over, guess where their heads would be? They'd be right in the traffic. So, and people did not drive 30 miles an hour over the Bob Michael Bridge. They exceed the speed limit, which I think is posted at maybe 35 or whatever. Anyway, that project is moving ahead. It is fully funded. The engineering will be completed the end of this year, and they're going to be putting out the construction bids in 2023, and they will shut down the bridge to all motorized traffic other than pedestrians will be able to walk over the bridge, and then it will be completed sometime. I don't know. I'm not sure whether it'll be completed. Probably won't be completed in 2023, maybe 2024. so this is it's a a singular project, but it's quite significant when you think about the fact that when I was preparing the advocacy for this, I asked our Brittany, our GIS person, to look at what barrier protected pathways existed on the Illinois River. And without the ones in Peoria, there was one in Marseilles, Illinois, however you pronounce that, and then St. Louis. So there's over 200, I think it was 270 miles of river. There was no barrier protected pathways. And so this is a big deal. And now we will get, with the construction of the new span of the McCluggage, the eastbound span of McCluggage, it is now, the advocacy for these kinds of pathways is such that is now in the design requirements for any new structure, any new bridge structure will have a pathway, a barrier protected pathway. So there will be a 14-foot wide protected pathway on the Bob Michael Bridge as well. So and if anybody has watched, we watch IDOT project all the time, and this by any measure is light speed from the standpoint of the concept, presenting it, getting it designed, and getting it constructed within, well, I started working on this in 2018, so we're looking at probably a 5-year period. So it's a pretty good big deal. So
I think
guess,
just based on the time, I might have to cut you off.
That's fine. Well, I just wanted to mention it because these folks, it's
right.
important for them to understand and know that this is going on.
Yeah, so this.
Thank you, Rima.
This is about the Bob Michael Bridge. So it's from Peoria to East Peoria. If you know, in Peoria, there's the CityLink Transit Center, and then it goes close to the Embassy Suites on the East Peoria side. So hopefully now, if you need to walk or use a wheelchair or bike, then that would be a place to do it. So I think that covered the other agenda item. Does anyone have? I'll take one last call for anything else before we leave. All right, in that case, our next meeting is on June 7th at noon, and I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
There you go. Thanks, Rima. Asked you on this before, but is Jody the appropriate person I should kind of get in the loop on this?
I mean, there's a lot of people who might be interested. It just depends.
Okay. Well, anyway, this contingency should be represented.
That's a good story. That should be standard practice.
Yeah.